Good morning from Mission Control Houston, and welcome to our coverage of the release and departure of the SpaceX Dragon vehicle here on NASA TV. The commercial cargo craft, which we'll see in just a few minutes when we reacquire video communication with the International Space Station, currently sits poised and ready to depart at the end of the Canadarm2 robotic arm. And currently packed with about 3,800 pounds of supplies bound for a trip through the Earth's atmosphere and a parachute-assisted splashdown in the Pacific Ocean. This is SpaceX's 12th commercial resupply mission, one of two commercial companies from the United States currently resupplying the International Space Station with science, supplies, vehicle hardware, any number of items necessary for running and maintaining humanity's orbiting laboratory 250 statute miles over the Earth. Getting some good views now. There you can see the SpaceX Dragon at the end of the Canadarm2, and in just a few minutes from now it's going to be released, depart, and then head on its way back towards Earth. The mission's been going for about 33 days since the vehicle launched back on August 14th, and then it delivered about 6,400 pounds of supplies and scientific cargo to the International Space Station, with a mix of both pressurized and unpressurized cargo on the way up. And the Dragon currently packed full of pressurized cargo, and all that again bound for a trip down through the Earth's atmosphere and a splashdown in the Pacific Ocean. Dragon is the only vehicle currently capable of returning, or the only cargo vehicle currently capable of returning science samples, hardware, large items, things like that. The others, the Progress and the orbital ATK Cygnus, currently burn up in the Earth's atmosphere upon re-entry, and some limited samples are able to be returned on the Russian Soyuz, but Dragon really the only one capable of delivering thousands of pounds. So dozens of different research studies are going to be making the trip home today, as there is a little over 2,600 pounds full of what we call utilization, so essentially science hardware and science samples from dozens of different studies from not only NASA but all of the international partners, the Japanese Aerospace Exploration Agency, the European Space Agency, and the Canadian Space Agency, and also from a number of different companies in other places in academia, other customers taking advantage of the U.S. National Laboratory on board the International Space Station. Through a partnership with CASIS, the Center for the Advancement of Science and Space. Fully half the research of the U.S. allocation made available to those companies, academia, other government agencies that take advantage of this microgravity laboratory, and there are a lot of those studies getting ready to make the trip home. So right now on board the International Space Station, there's two crew members in the cupola where they're at the robotics workstation looking over the robotic arm and getting ready for this release activity. Paolo Nespoli from the European Space Agency is going to be prime for the release today, and he's being backed up by the current Expedition 53 commander, Randy Bresnik. Nespoli and Bresnik have been on board since late July when they arrived with Sergei Ryazanskiy as part of Expedition 52 and now transitioned into Expedition 53 since early September. But again, Nespoli is going to be the prime. He's a flight engineer for Expedition 53, and Randy Bresnik, the NASA astronauts, the commander of Expedition 53, so we'll be hearing their voices on the loops quite a bit this morning, as again, Nespoli prime and Bresnik in the backup position. Meanwhile, here in Mission Control Houston, the team's just doing their go, no-go for the upcoming Dragon release. They're being led this morning in the room by Mary Lawrence, the flight director there at the bottom of your screen. And just above her is Andreas Mogensen from the European Space Agency, serving as the Capcom today. That's the voice communication link between our teams down here on the ground and the crew on board the International Space Station. And so the actual release window for Dragon opens in just about 6 minutes from now, a little under 6 minutes. It'll open at 3:40 a.m. Central Time, and that's when the release is planned for. Now it is a window, so the window will stay open for about 25 minutes, and they'll have pretty much any time in that window to release Dragon. Once the command is sent, it takes a few moments for all of the snares in the robotic arm to retract and for Dragon to be released. So we'll get an exact time once the release actually occurs, but it should, all of this should pick up quite a bit in about 5 minutes from now. After Dragon's actually released from the robotic arm, it'll slowly sit there. It'll sit in a bit of a free drift, and they'll back the robotic arm away from the vehicle. Then Dragon will execute a series of departure burns, firing the thrusters on it to take it out of the neighborhood of the International Space Station, and eventually get it ready to go on its way towards that deorbit burn and re-entry. Again, so it's been maneuvered in place. The hatch was actually closed yesterday on Saturday afternoon, and then the vehicle detached from the Harmony module later in the evening. Again, it'll do those departure burns, and then the lower service module part will separate. It'll do its atmospheric reentry, and then a parachute-assisted splashdown in the Pacific. The deorbit burn is scheduled to take place several hours after the departure, a little under 5 hours after, actually, with the deorbit burn planned at 8:24 a.m. Central Time, 9:24 a.m. Eastern Time, and the actual splashdown right now targeted for 9:14 a.m. Central Time, 7:14 a.m. over on the West Coast, where Dragon will be landing.
Go ahead, Andy.
All right, I can now give you the go for Dragon release on time, and you are go to perform steps 2, 3, and 4 in 1.320 Dragon release.
Houston, that's in work.
And then right there, Andreas Mogensen giving the crew the go from the team here in Houston for Dragon release. Again, we'll hear Randy Bresnik on the calls down quite a bit. He's backing up Paolo Nespoli, who's prime for this activity today, and he'll be sending the commands to actually release the Dragon from the station's robotic arm. A good view there of Canadarm2 and the Dragon vehicle. Canadarm actually used for capturing the vehicle upon its arrival and on installing it to the Harmony module, and then obviously for the uninstall and now the release this morning. Roughly 2 minutes away from the open of that release window. And again, packed on board is a little over 3,800 pounds of cargo, and that includes more than a ton of research experiments and technology demonstration samples. Just a few of those items getting ready to return. There was a biological study known as the lung tissue experiment, which used the station's unique microgravity environment to test a strategy for actually growing new lung tissue. The whole model, or the whole purpose for this, is to hopefully be used as a predictive model for human responses, allowing for the study of lung development, lung physiology, and then actually studying disease pathology in patients that have these lung issues. So using that unique microgravity environment to study disease that actually impacts people here back on Earth. And we are less than a minute away from the open of the release window. And you can see things starting to darken on the surface behind Dragon. The station actually flying just to the south of Australia right now. It's about to swing up on a northeasterly track, go right over the continent of Australia, and then out over the central Pacific Ocean.
Go ahead.
And just like that, Dragon has been released, getting the call. The snares are open, 340 right on time. Again, we'll slowly start to see Dragon separate a bit from the robotic arm there. It's going to get slowly drawn back, and then Dragon will be able to execute all of those departure burns. This a view right down the barrel of the robotic arm as it slowly retracts away from Dragon. Again, that release coming right on time, 3:40 a.m. Central, 4:40 a.m. Eastern, while the station flew to the south of Australia. The arm continuing to slowly back away. Should start to see the first of several departure burns coming up any moment now. The arm already about 1 meter away. Two meters in the opening, the capsule coming fully into view there. And so with the arm backed away, the departure burns being armed.
Sensation on.
And the first departure burn has begun.
Excellent, good job, and thank you.
Visiting vehicle officer here in Houston reporting everything looking good.
And Station Houston on 2, departure burn 1 is complete. Departure burn 2 in approximately 1 minute.
Station copies.
So in about 30 seconds, the second departure burn should begin, and you can see Dragon slowly making its way out of the neighborhood of the International Space Station. Again, it's going to execute a series of these departure burns, slowly getting further and further away. It's going to exit what's known as the keep out sphere and the approach ellipsoid, and those are basically imaginary boundaries drawn around the International Space Station, where a lot of rules and coordination with the International Space Station Flight Control Team come into play for any visiting vehicles. And all of this just setting up ultimately for the deorbit burn and the landing of Dragon. There we see it moving at a slightly higher clip now. The second departure burn has been executed.
Station Houston on 2 for Dragon.
Houston.
All right, departure burn 2 is complete, and you are go for SSRMS safing, and that's step 5 in 1.320.
Okay, go for safing on step 5.
That's affirm. And departure burn 3 is in about 6 minutes, and you are go to monitor per step 3 in 1.602.
In work, step 3 of 1.602.
And so for right now, 2 departure burns already completed. A third one coming up in just a couple of minutes. Again, that release came right on time at 3:40 a.m. Central Time, 4:40 a.m. Eastern, while the station was flying just to the south of Australia. Continuing to get some external camera views of the SpaceX Dragon as it flies away from the International Space Station. The unmanned cargo craft, which delivered about 6,400 pounds of supplies and cargo to the station back in August, now packed with a little over 3,800 pounds and bound back for planet Earth. Had an on-time release right at 3:40 a.m. Central, 4:40 a.m. Eastern. And so far so good with all of these departure burns. One more to execute, and then it'll eventually make its way out of the keep-out sphere and the approach ellipsoid. And then all of that will set it up for a deorbit burn in a couple of hours from now, targeted at 8:24 a.m. Central, 9:24 a.m. Eastern. All of that ultimately culminating in a splashdown at 9:14 a.m. Central, 10:14 a.m. Eastern. And once it splashes down, recovery technicians will pick it up and take it back to California, where a lot of that cargo will get offloaded and immediately sent back here to Houston, where it then gets delivered to the various scientists around the country and around the world at the various international partners taking part in the research on board the International Space Station. So still a lot of miles left to travel for a lot of this research, but everything kicking off with this journey home with that on-time release today. And now the third departure burn for Dragon has begun. And that burn already completed. And the visiting vehicle officer here in Houston reporting everything's still looking good with Dragon's departure. The view's obviously getting a little bit darker.
Round 2, departure burn 3 is complete, and Dragon is now outside the keep-out sphere.
Station copies, and we would like to give a big thank to all the operational teams around the world that keep our presence in space possible, to the scientists and engineers that provide the outstanding research and equipment we got on space, to NASA and all the space agencies that contribute to the space station, and finally to SpaceX for giving us this outstanding vehicle. Godspeed, Dragon 12.
And we thank you for all your hard work up there. I know that you guys have had a tremendous amount of science to do for the past month while Dragon has been docked. So well done on a good job.
We thank you, Andy, and thanks to the rest of the team for making it possible for us to do that. We look forward to the next opportunity.
Some kind words traded between space and ground. The teams here in Mission Control obviously very busy overseeing a lot of the systems, and the crews on board very busy executing the science and actually were pretty slammed packing the vehicle as the hatches were just closed yesterday, and the Dragon now already on its way back home. And as you heard, this is Dragon number 12. This is SpaceX's 12th commercial resupply mission, who along with Orbital ATK have been supplying several tons every single year of supplies and scientific samples and research equipment to the International Space Station. The next commercial resupply mission currently on the list is going to be Orbital ATK's 8th, currently targeted for no earlier than November 10th for a liftoff. But for now, SpaceX's 12th mission getting close to the end as it has now departed the International Space Station out of the keep out sphere. We'll hang out for a few more minutes until it's out of what's known as the approach ellipsoid, and then we'll be ready to end our coverage of Dragon departure. Again, all of this culminating in a deorbit burn and then a splashdown. The deorbit burn at 8:24 a.m. Central, 9:24 a.m. Eastern, and a splashdown at 9:14 a.m. Central, 7:14 a.m. Pacific. And neither the deorbit burn or the splashdown will be seen here on NASA TV. But just another quick animation of what that'll look like. Dragon will detach from its trunk portion and then ultimately parachute down into the Pacific Ocean.
And Houston, station on 2. Quick question, are you okay with us leaving the cupola shutters open at this point?
Yeah, they need to be closed a little bit longer for thruster firings, unfortunately.
Thanks.
And just getting confirmation now from the visiting vehicle officer. Dragon is outside of the approach ellipsoid.
Head on 2, Andy.
All right, just to give you peace of mind, Dragon is now outside the approach ellipsoid and it's on a safe 24-hour free drift trajectory.
Great news. I'm sure the SpaceX 12 team down there in Hawthorne are breathing a sigh of relief. Looking forward to a safe entry and a quick recovery.
And so with that, Dragon outside of the approach ellipsoid, more than 500 meters away now from the International Space Station. and on its way back home. Again, a couple of milestones left for it, but that release came right on time at 3:40 a.m. Central, 4:40 a.m. Eastern, when Paolo Nespoli gave the command to release Dragon from the space station's robotic arm. It released, executed all of its departure burns, and is now on its way towards a deorbit burn and a splashdown. The deorbit burn slated to take place at 8:24 a.m. Central, 9:24 a.m. Eastern, with the splashdown at 9:14 a.m. Central, 10:14 a.m. Eastern. 7:14 a.m. for the folks over on the West Coast, who will soon be welcoming Dragon into port. It'll get picked up by recovery forces and then moved back into port, and then the science samples will be unloaded. But for now, control of the vehicle will be overseen, as it has been throughout the entire mission, at Hawthorne, California, who will command the deorbit burn and track Dragon on its way back down. Just a quick reminder that deorbit burn and splashdown will not be seen on NASA TV, so be sure to check the web and SpaceX's various social media accounts along with the station accounts for any photos or video of splashdown. But with that, we are done today with our coverage. I want to thank you for waking up early in the morning or staying up late at night to watch the departure of another commercial cargo vehicle, all done with resupplying the International Space Station and a big load of science among the over 3,800 pounds of cargo on its way back through a fiery re-entry through the Earth's atmosphere and a parachute-assisted splashdown in the ocean. So thank you for joining us this morning. Be sure to check us out on the web at nasa.gov/station to follow the upcoming activities for Expedition 53. But for now, that'll go ahead and do it for us. This is Mission Control Houston.